pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As that we remain standing for a moment of reflection and memory of Rose Maneo, our board president's mom.
Thank you, Mr. Howard, and thank you for the reflection. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Cupertino, Mr. Howard, Mr. Johnston, Ms. Maneo,
Here.
Mr. Menuda,
Here.
Ms. Prokop, Mr. Stridiron, Mr. Tabano,
Yeah.
Ms. Ambita.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: matter made confidential under FERPA, employment history of particular individuals, matters leading to the employment of particular individuals, the review of programs and placement of students with disabilities, and collective bargaining under the Taylor Law, NTA, CSCA, NASA, and to obtain advice from legal counsel. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston, Ms. Maneo,
Yes.
Mr. Menuda,
Yes.
Ms. Prokop,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Tabano.
Yes.
We will return at 7:01. We're now at the section of the agenda for public discussion and comments on agenda items. Please refer to the regulations regarding discussion and comments that is posted next to the sign-in sheet. We have nobody signed up, but would anybody like to address the board on agenda items? If not, we're going to rock and roll. We're doing the first reading of policy number 9310, employee physical examination, and number 0101, equitable educational opportunities. Are there any questions or discussion? We're going to roll. Resolution to authorize the board president to execute retainer agreement with Shaw, Perlson, May, and Lambert LLP for tax services. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Johnston, Ms. Maneo,
Yes.
Mr. Menuda,
Yes.
Ms. Prokop,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Tabano,
Yes.
Mr. Howard.
We're going to move on to the superintendent, who has no items. And now board committee reports. Curriculum committee, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. The curriculum committee met on Wednesday, February 15. Field trip, conference, and textbook proposals were presented. We looked at January Regents data, iReady assessment data, and APEX data. It was noted that there were significantly more APEX participants from NFA North compared to NFA Maine. There was some discussion about the upcoming curriculum council meetings and a survey which was available on the district website. Thank you.
Thank you. Policy committee, Mr. Stridiron.
We met on February 15th. The items on the agenda were the draft policy for the equitable education opportunities, employee physical exams, wellness policy, and policy 4526, which is computer use in instruction. And the next meeting will be tomorrow at, I believe, 4 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Stridiron. We're going to move to the deputy superintendent section. Mr. Forte.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening I have two items. The first item is recommendation for CSE, from the CSE and CPSE committees.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Maneo,
Yes.
Mr. Menuda,
Yes.
Ms. Prokop,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron, Mr. Tabano,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston.
Yes.
My next item is a resolution to authorize the board president to execute an agreement with Vital Behavior Services.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Menuda,
Yes.
Ms. Prokop,
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron,
Yes.
Mr. Tabano,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Ms. Maneo.
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Forte. We're going to roll right along to our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Mrs. Felice.
Thank you, Madam President. We have several items for CNI this evening. The first one being the resolution to approve conference requests.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnson? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Item 7.2 is a resolution to approve field trip requests.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnson? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Item 7.3 is a resolution to authorize the superintendent of schools to execute an agreement with NYU for South Middle School.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Mr. Stronach.
I'd like to know the status of the community schools grant for both South and Main and the high school. And if there's any plan on trying to get the grant for extended for a few years.
Mr. Forte.
This is the final year of the grant. This is the final year of the grant.
The funding concludes in June. However, the relationship with the county Office of Mental Health Services could continue further based upon the number of referrals that are received to support the students. So they can sustain those efforts beyond the grant as long as they have the number of referrals that they're communicating to the county that they're supporting our families here as caseworkers.
How did it go with the extension of services at Horizons since the grant ended in that school?
The caseworkers are still there providing those services based on the number of referrals that we received in that building. But I believe that's the only component that is sustained right now.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Johnson? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Madam President, at this time, we request to table item 7.4, the resolution to approve new textbooks for world languages.
We have a motion to table. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnson? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am?
Basically, that's just so we get a finalized cost.
Thank you.
Not that we're doing away with not the books, it's just we need a finalized cost.
Thank you.
That concludes our items, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Felice. We're going to move on to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance. Mr. Forte will be doing that.
Our first item this evening is a resolution to approve bills and reports.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Johnson? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
The next item is a resolution to declare boats and equipment obsolete and to authorize the disposition of the same.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnson?
Our next item, 8.3, is a resolution to accept furniture donation.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnson? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Next item is a resolution to establish health services rate.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Boca?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt-Iron?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnson? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
My next item is a resolution to authorize the superintendent to execute agreement with Big Brothers Big Sisters.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Scrivener?
Looks like the contract began in July 2016, is that correct? It's signed June 15, 2016.
Mr. Ford, would you like to get back to us on that?
Yes.
Would you like to table it, or would you like to continue this? Thank you. So, any other questions or comments? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Scrivener? Yes. Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnston? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
My next item is a resolution to accept grants from Lowe's.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivener?
Yes.
And 8.7 is a resolution to accept a donation from Toyota.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivener?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Forget. We're going to move on to the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, I'd like to request permission to remove on the civil service side, item H2. I'd like to request permission to remove that item.
So let's start with, I'd like to entertain a motion on this agenda item 9.1, and we'll go from there, okay, Mr. McLemore? So I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Now I'd like to entertain a motion to amend that, taking out item
H2.
H2.
So moved.
Okay, can I have questions or discussion on removing that item? A roll call on removing, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivener?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
We have a motion on the floor without item H2. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Johnston? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivener?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
On the HR agenda, items A through K. On the professional side, we have appointments and other appointments, leave of absence, return from a leave of absence, resignation, retirement, and on the civil service side, we have appointments, change of status, resignation, retirement, and termination.
Thank you. We kind of went through that without you, so I'm sorry, Mr. McLemore. Okay, let's go to the next item.
Item 9.2, I'll get it right, Madam President.
No, I don't have any this time, so.
Item 9.2 is a resolution to approve additional 2016-17 winter athletic coaching appointments.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clark.
Mr. Mineo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivener?
Yes.
Mr. Devano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnston?
Item 9.3 is a resolution to approve additional 2016-17 athletic coaching appointments.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Scrivener?
Were the questions from the last meeting addressed?
I believe so. It was everybody has their
Yes,
credentials.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Mrs. Brokaw?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Sabano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Johnston? Yes. Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Item 9.4 is a resolution to approve Meadow Hill School intensive ELA and math extended day program appointments.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Brokaw?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Sabano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Item 9.5 is a resolution to approve New Windsor Extended Learning Program ELA appointments.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Strittmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Sabano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Brokaw?
Yes.
Item 9.6 is a resolution to approve South Middle School after-school program appointments.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Sabano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Brokaw?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmeyer?
Yes.
Item 9.7 is a resolution to approve teacher in charge.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Stradiner?
Could you just outline the duties of the teacher in charge?
The teacher in charge would, the duties would be to administrate in the absence of the current building administrator.
Mr. Stradiner?
So the person that's on this list is an actual teacher in NFA West? Thank you.
With administrator.
Yes. Duly certified. Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Johnston? Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Brokaw?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Sabano?
Yes.
Item 9.8 is a resolution to approve the 2017-18 district calendar.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Stradiner.
Has this calendar been reviewed by all of the people that were involved this past year in the, especially regarding the Jewish holidays?
Ms. Prakash, would you like to answer that?
Yes, they will.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am?
No, I'm not on this.
Okay. Roll call, Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda?
Yes.
Ms. Brokaw? Mr. Strittmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Sabano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McClure, but I'm going to go to Ms. Prakash
Yes,
first.
Madam President, I just noticed after we voted on 9.3, I just want to make sure that the amount is right for number 4, because it's a modified, and it's the same thing as varsity. I just want to make sure that the amount is correct, Mr. McClure.
That amount, Ms. Prakash, that amount will be adjusted.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. McLemore. We're going to move on to our clerk of the board, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Under approval of the minutes from February 14th, 2017.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Mr. Menuda? Ms. Brokaw?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Sabano?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
And item 10.2, just some information, Board of Education packets for candidates, potential candidates for the board are available in my office. We currently have 3 seats that will be up for a re-election this year. The seats are currently held by Mr. Copertino, Mr. Strittmeyer, and Ms. Beneo. Packets can be picked up in my office any day. You need to get 100 signatures to be on the ballot. And just an FYI, according to Board Policy 2120.1, for candidates or campaigning, you are not allowed to obtain signatures on your petition packets as on any property owned by the district, nor are you allowed to campaign on district property if you plan on running for the board. That's regardless of whether or not you picked up your packet or not. And that would conclude my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We're now at the portion of the agenda for public discussion on non-agenda items. Please refer to the procedure sheet next to the sign-in sheet. Would anyone like to address the board on non-agenda items? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, please. Go ahead, wait, we have somebody that would like to address the board. You need to move fast.
Sorry about that. Good evening, my name is Veronica Johnson, and real quick, I just want to make a comment. I attended the Black History Culture Expo that was happening on Friday night, and I was really impressed with the students. One thing that I have to say about the district itself is that the mics, we got to look into that, because we really need to fix that so that the voices can be heard.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address? Okay. Am I done now? I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, please. Roll call.
Mr. Menuda? Yes. Mr. Prokop? Yes. Mr. Goodire? Yes. Mr. Devano? Yes. Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Johnson? Yes. Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Thank you. See you all in a couple of weeks.